Hey everybody, Corey Anderson here. Today is Sunday, the 26th of June, and right now it is 10:40 in the morning. Today we are going to go over part 15 out of our lovely book, The Master Key System by Charles F. Haanel. And last time we went over part 14, I just want to cover a few key elements that we have obtained from it. Okay, so part 14 of The Master Key, he had gone over this universal substance that we all know, that all things proceed, even you and me. We are all embodiments of this intelligent universal energy, and this intelligent energy is our own intelligence, that we are the same exact thing as this universal ocean of consciousness that we all live in. Okay, this intelligent living substance that has created all within itself, like they say in metaphysics, moves all within itself, and at the same time holds all things in their places. Because not only do we live within this ocean of energy, we are also individualizations of this energy. So the key things that we have gotten from our last lesson, okay, in the last lesson we had gone over that everything in the universe is made out of, or at least electromagnetism. Okay, everything is electromagnetic in nature. Okay, you yourself as well as everything material. Okay, the only difference between this solid form and this material, the only difference between this material form and the invisible substance form is that before it was this, it was the universal energy in its most purest state that has individualized itself into this dream rock. Okay, that is how it became a separate entity in the material world, and that is how it's expressing itself as something individual from this live rock. Okay, these two rocks, live and dream, are from both the same substance as like you and me. Okay, just they are structured differently in a molecular way. Okay, in the most. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so everything's made out of electrons. So we learned that electrons are the most basic property. Okay, in its most pure state, it is electrons. Okay. Next, these electrons group themselves and soon produce an atom. Okay, now this is made of millions and millions of atoms. You yourself are made of over 26 trillion atoms. Okay, we learned that in our book Mental Chemistry by Charles F. Haanel. Okay, over 26 trillion atoms that your body is made of. Okay, and these atoms in turn group themselves in accordances to form molecules. And what is a molecule? Remember, we learned that a molecule is the most simplest substance that can maintain its own identity. Okay, so as an electron, it's essentially nothing. It's just an electron. Okay, these electrons will start to group themselves into atoms. Okay, and even as atoms, they're still sort of just nothing. Okay, but as these atoms start to build more and more, it starts to make the molecule. And the molecule is the part which makes air, air, water, water, fire, fire, wind, wind. Okay, it is the molecule which makes it that. Okay, maintaining its own identity. The molecule is what makes it, the air, different from the water. The atoms and electrons are the same. It's when it becomes a molecule where it starts to take on its own individual properties. Okay, then we also learned that light, light travels at the speed of 186,000 miles a second. And let's go over how this has been verified. Okay, the velocity of light was obtained by the Danish astronomer Romer in 1676 by observing the eclipses of Jupiter's moons. When the Earth was nearest to Jupiter, the eclipse appeared about 8½ minutes too soon for the calculations, and when the Earth was most remote from Jupiter, farthest from, they were about 8½ minutes too late. Romer concluded the reason to be that it required 17 minutes for light from the planet to traverse the diameter of Earth's orbit, which measured the difference of the distances of the Earth from Jupiter. This calculation has since been verified and proves that light travels about 186,000 miles a second. Interesting. And let's just read this last one, and then we'll go over chapter 15, because if you guys want to go over this one, chapter 14 is on my channel. Feel free to look that up with me. And electrons manifest in the body as cells, and we are made of trillions of these cells. In other words, molecule. Okay, so let's start with chapter 15 now. Introduction. Experiments with parasites found on plants indicate that even the lowest order of life is enabled to take advantage of natural law. This experiment was made by Jacques Locke, MD, PhD, a member of the Rockefeller Institute. Quote, "In order to obtain the material, potted rose bushes are brought into a room and placed in front of a closed window. If the plants are allowed to dry out, the aphids, or in other words, parasites, previously wingless, change to winged insects. After the metamorphosis, the animals leave the plants, fly to the window, and then creep upward on the glass." End quote. Now this is basically an experiment that they're doing to indicate evolution in how a creature can change itself in form in order to live. Okay. I know he went over this example in another one of his books. I believe it was Mental Chemistry. Because if the parasite didn't, then it would have died, and it grew wings in order to live. It is evident that these tiny insects found that the plants on which they had been thriving were dead, and that they could therefore secure nothing more to eat and drink from this source. The only method by which they could save themselves from starvation was to grow temporary wings and fly, which they did. Experiments such as these indicate the omniscience, as well as omnipotence is omnipresent, and that the tiniest living thing can take advantage of it in an emergency. Now this sounds very similar to what Wallace D. Wattles was talking about, the principle of power within man, that man can grow along any line which he pleases to help them along any source of or any environment which involves survival. You know, man can improve himself in any direction which he pleases to ensure that he becomes the most fitted and most fit, just fit for whatever it is that he's trying to accomplish, whether that's survival, whether it's business, whether it's fitness, whether it's just being the best possible you that you can be. Okay, the thing with us is that we have the conscious ability to do that. That we could make the decision to make it like that, and then boom, we can make that happen. Okay, unlike the insect wasn't able to do that until it finally realized that it was going, until it came to the point where it was going to die. Usually that's when most people make the decision to do things like that, when they reach, you know, a brink beyond this, or they got extremely, you know, heartbroken, or any other type of thing, maybe pain, you know, any type of pain which caused the person to choose to make a drastic decision in their life, to actually make the change to make their life better. It's not easy, that's for sure. Part 15 will tell you more about the law under which we live. It will explain that these laws operate to our advantage, and all conditions and experiments that come to us are for our benefit. That we gain strength in proportion to the effort expended. Quote, "You must do the thing to have the power," end quote. And that is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. That isn't in here, I just kind of threw that in because he was talking about using. You must use the thing in order to keep possession of it. And that our happiness is best attained through a conscious cooperation with natural laws. And that was the introduction, and now let's start with part 15. The laws under which we live are designed solely for our advantage. These laws are immutable, and we cannot escape from their operation. No matter what, this law is always happening in operation. Remember, you and I and the universal are one, okay? There is no difference in kind and quality between either of us. The only difference is in scale, in degree, in the amount of which this universal intelligence pours itself into each individual entity, giving himself more and more to us as we reach out to obtain more and more of it, or him. All the great eternal forces act in solemn silence, but it is in our power and place to place ourselves in harmony with them, and thus express a life of comparative peace and happiness. Difficulties, inharmonies, and obstacles indicate that we are either refusing to give out what we no longer need, or refusing to accept what we require. Basically, difficulties, inharmonies, and obstacles are you refusing to give away the things you no longer need, okay? Growth. Remember the law of growth that he was talking about. Everything grows along certain lines, and every single day you are growing, regardless of what, it doesn't matter. You are growing. It is natural. It's a natural law. It happens by itself, and we are consistently growing. And it's when we choose not to let go of the things which we have outgrown that causes a lot more difficulties and obstacles. And when we are rejecting the things that we are moving into to help us for further growth, that is also bringing us a lot of difficulties as well, because we're not letting go of what we're growing from, and we're not accepting what we're growing into. Okay, so that is very important to have that balance within your own life. Growth is attained through an exchange of the old for the new, of the good for the better. It is a conditional or reciprocal action, for each of us is a complete thought entity, and this completeness makes it possible for us to receive only as we give. We cannot obtain what we lack if we tenaciously cling to what we have. We are able to consciously control our conditions as we come to sense the purpose of what we attract, and are able to extract from each experience only what we require for further growth. Our ability to do this determines the degree of harmony or happiness we attain. Our ability to let go of the things we have outgrown, and our ability to accept the things that we are growing into. The ability to appropriate what we require for our growth continually increases as we reach higher planes and broader visions, and the greater our abilities to know what we require, the more certain we shall be to discern its presence, to attract it, and to absorb it. Nothing may reach us except what is necessary for our growth. All conditions and experiments that come to us do so for our benefit. Difficulties and obstacles will continue to come until we absorb their wisdom and gather from them the essentials of further growth. That we reap what we sow is mathematically exact. We gain permanent strength exactly to the extent of the effort required to overcome difficulties. So whatever difficulty that you are facing, okay, however much energy you need to put into overcoming it, okay, know that that energy that you are expending to overcome that specific unhealthy habit that you have outgrown, that energy will then come back to you tenfold into an increased, into a habit that is healthy for you, and that healthy habit is going to be 10 times stronger for you than that unhealthy habit is. Okay, working on ourselves, letting go of the things that we no longer need, and grabbing onto the things that we need for further advancement. Okay, letting go of the things that are taking the time of your life that you no longer need. You need to let go of those things so you can make room for the things that you do need in your life to come in. Because if you keep permitting yourself to do the thing which you have outgrown, then you're never going to have room for the things that are going to come in your life for further growth. Okay, they're waiting for you Things are waiting for you to keep advancing along. The inexorable requirements of growth demand that we exert the greatest degree of attraction for what is perfectly in accord with us. Our highest happiness will be best attained through our understanding of and conscious cooperation with natural laws. In order to possess vitality, thought must be impregnated with love. Love is a product of the emotions, and is therefore essential that the emotions be controlled and guided by the intellect and reason. Now remember what the emotions do. The emotions are what give life to and vitality to your thought, to create the feeling. Okay, remember, a thought by itself is just a thought, okay? But once you have an emotional connection to that thought, you're giving life to that thought, okay? Because, like I said, if you have no emotional connection to it, it's almost like it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't really matter. Okay, it's like it doesn't affect you in any way because it's just a thought form. Okay, but once you actually give life and vitality to that thought form, it's like that's when that thought really starts to take root and affect you. Once you are giving it that power, once you're emotionalizing it, giving it the life in order for its own vitality and growth to take place. It is love which imparts vitality to thought and thus enables it to germinate. The law of attraction, or the law of love, for they are one and the same, will bring to it the necessary material for its growth and maturity. Now that is very interesting how he says that, because in our lovely book, You, which we are very excited and anxious to read to you guys, but right now we are going over The Science of Being Great by Wallace D. Wattles. We need to finish this one first before we can move over to that one. But in You, Charles F. Haanel talks about the imagination imaging, and we've already gone over the power of the imagination and how visualization and idealization are both two structures or two functions stemming out from the imagination. Because when you're imagining, you're using the process of imaging. Okay, you're imagining it, you're imaging it, you're creating the mental pictures within your mind. And we know that our mind is the exact same mind as the universal mind. Okay, your mind is the same mind as God's mind. The only difference between you two is one of degree. Okay, as you reach out and grab for more of Him, He will reach down and pour more of Himself through you. Remember this ocean of consciousness. What is Christ? Christ is the inner light. Christ is exactly what you and I are. That is our real nature. That is just who we are. Christ is our own individualized spark of consciousness from living in the Father consciousness, the ocean of intelligent energy. Okay. But yes, imaging. Where was I going with this? When you're imaging that thing, okay, you were creating. We're going to go over a lot about magnetism and electricity as well. Okay, electromagnetism is what everything, the entire material realm is made out of this electromagnetic force, and you yourself are exerting this electromagnetic energy. And when you're imagining, you're creating that magnetic field within yourself, literally changing the structure and atoms and cells and molecules within your own being. And these cells and molecules then react by assuming the form of that which you are imaging, and also shooting out a beam of energy into the universe, asking for the specific materials required to make that vision a reality, like it says right here. The law of attraction, or the law of love, for they are one and the same, will bring to it. Now, you are the it that he is saying. This sentence will bring to it, or like in other words, will bring to you the necessary material for its growth and maturity. The first form which thought will find is language, or words. This determines the importance of words. They are the first manifestation of thought, the vessels in which thought is carried. They take hold of the ether, and by setting it in motion, reproduce the thoughts to others in the form of sound. Okay, we also want to go over sound. Okay, what is sound? He goes over energy. Okay, ether matter in motion, ether under strain. Okay, ether under strain is the same as potential energy. Okay, it just is. It's there. Okay, matter in motion is dynamic energy. Okay, let me reword this. Okay, ether under strain is static energy. Okay, it simply is. Matter in motion is dynamic energy. It is force and power. Okay, so matter in motion is us. Okay, matter in motion is the universal intelligence in dynamic form, doing things. Okay, making it happen. Okay, ether under strain is this universal intelligence in static form. Okay, as the ocean, this ocean of energy from which all of us are living, moving, and having our being. Okay, that is ether in motion. And then, or ether under strain, then matter in motion is when it is embodied in form, making things happen. Okay, so matter in motion causes ether to go under strain, and ether under strain causes matter to go under motion. Okay, an example, as he is saying with words. Words are thoughts formed. Okay, words are the second level of creation. Okay, thought is the first level. Okay, you have to first think it, and then words are the second, because you are taking those thoughts and you're symbolizing them with these words. That is how we are able to communicate. Okay, by whatever is I'm thinking, I'm putting it in a symbol known as words, and you are taking in that symbol, and whatever that symbol represents, you are understanding it in that specific way. That is how people are able to speak different languages, and one person cannot understand the other because they're not aware of what those symbols mean. Okay, but as I am speaking, okay, I'm using my Visuddha chakra. Okay, my ability to create sound. Okay, my throat is vibrating. Remember, everything is made out of vibrations, and when you're speaking, you're causing your throat to create its own vibrations. And while I do that, okay, we also go over how words are electromagnetic in nature as well. Every time you speak, you are releasing electromagnetic energy. Okay, but as you are speaking and releasing this electromagnetic energy, okay, we learned that energy is never destroyed and it can never die. Okay, so not only am I releasing heat along with my words, but also sound. Okay, heat and sound are being released through the ether. Okay, me speaking is matter in motion. Okay, and then these words travel along across the mind of God, or this ethereal solar fluid which we all live and move and have our being, or this universal ocean of intelligence, or this energy, whatever you want to call it. Okay, this field. Okay, as I speak, it is matter in motion, and then it is picked along the wings of the ether. Okay, the mind of God, by the law of vibration, in the form of vibration. Okay, that is how I am able to create sound with matter, as he says, matter in motion, and it travels along the ether with ether under strain. Okay, remember, ether under strain is just pure static energy. It just is. Okay, matter in motion is energy in motion. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with you really quick, especially since we're going over it right now. At least make that connection to when we actually go over the book You. We have tons of other books that we're going to read with you as well. And we're also going to go over the My Wills of Life book, the 7 chakras, because we are going to connect a lot of that with what You explains with us. Okay, so let's continue. Thought may lead to action of any kind, but whatever the action, it is simply the thought attempting to express itself in visible form. Remember, you take on the form of the thing which you think about the most. Okay, the greatest secret: man is what he thinks about most of the time. It is evident, therefore, that if we wish desirable conditions, we can afford to entertain only desirable thoughts. This leads to the inevitable conclusion that if we wish to express abundance in our lives, we can afford to think abundance only, and as words are only thoughts taking form, we must be especially careful to use nothing but constructive and harmonious language, which, when finally crystallized into objective forms, will prove to our advantage. We cannot escape from the pictures we incessantly photograph on our mind. Okay, incessantly. Okay, from the way he uses the word, incessantly sounds very similar to, like, consistently, okay? When you're consistently, when you're consistent with your thought, okay? When you're assessant with your thought, that is how it is. It impresses itself upon your mind. Okay, remember, your subconscious mind is what we need to impress, what you need to impress with this material. Okay, because the conscious mind will read it, and then well, first of all, because the conscious part of your mind will read it, and it won't grasp everything that it's learning. That's why you need to repeat it to create those mental grooves, to create your mechanism of attachment, your brain, to withhold all of this knowledge. Remember, everything in here is scientific. And what is science? Science is exact observation of principles, or the science is the study of exact principles with exact observations, okay? With actually seeing that happening, okay? That is what makes it that way, okay? That is what science proves, okay? But this word, let me find it, it's somewhere in here. Incessantly. I use a phone on my dictionary a lot, and I like to favorite all of the words I looked at, so because at times I like to go over them and read over them. But anyway, incessant means continuing without interruption. Okay, ceaseless. Okay, so we are right, being consistent with it. Okay. We cannot escape from the pictures we incessantly photograph on the mind, and this photography of erroneous conceptions is exactly what is being done by the use of words. When we use any form of language which is not identified with our welfare. Okay, remember, your words have a lot of power. I got this from a movie once. I don't remember what it is. I remember seeing it on TV when I was walking by, and he said, do you know what's more stronger than an atom bomb? Your words. Your words have power, because your words have the power to cut somebody or to heal them, okay, to injure somebody or to save them. You have that much power. Remember, you are a creator. You are creating the likeness and image of God, the universal mind, the supreme intelligence from which all things proceeded. You and our Father are one. You and I are one, because behind the mask we wear, you and I are the exact same, just individualized in our own individual Christ form. This leads to the inevitable. Okay, we already read that part. Let's not backtrack, shall we? We manifest more and more life as our thoughts become clarified and takes higher planes. This is obtained with greater facility as we use word pictures that are clearly defined and relieved of the conceptions attached to them on lower planes of thought. Okay, now remember, you can never advance in your life until you advance in your own thinking. Okay, so it is only evident that if we start to think on higher planes, we will obtain more and more of life. Okay, because thought creates our reality. This wonderful power in clothing thought in the form of words is what differentiates man from the rest of the animal kingdom. By the use of the written word, he has been enabled to look back over the centuries and see the stirring scenes by which he has come into his present inheritance. Just like this book, and even the Bible. Remember, even in the Bible it says, man shall not eat by bread alone, but by every word which proceeds from his mouth. Have you ever said something and then it ended up happening? Or even thinking something and it ended up happening? Okay, remember, when you were thinking it, you were setting those forces in motion. But it is like he is saying, as you speak it as well, you are giving even more and more power and life and vitality to those thoughts, because you are expressing it out in the ethereal realm. Okay, remember, it only exists in the thought exists in the subconscious mind. Okay, once you put it into words, it is obtained by the conscious. Okay, because you can hear yourself without speaking. Okay, in order to hear yourself physically, you have to speak physically, but you could hear yourself without speaking. Okay, that is the difference between The world within and the world without, the conscious and subconscious mind. Remember, the subconscious mind is responsible for your inner. The conscious mind is responsible for the outer. Okay. It is with words that we express our thoughts, and if we are to make use of higher forms of truth, we may use only such material as has been carefully and intelligently selected with this purpose in view. This wonderful power of clothing thoughts in the form of words is what differentiates man from the rest of the animal kingdom. By the use of the written word, he has been enabled to look back over the centuries and see the stirring scenes by which he has come into his present inheritance. He has been enabled to come into communion with the greatest writers and thinkers of all time. And the combined record which we possess today is therefore the expression of universal thought, as it has been seeking to take form in the mind of man. Remember, we have learned that thoughts never die, okay? Every thought that has been thought by every single sage is around us this very second. The only thing is bringing ourselves in tune with that specific thought vibration, or to receive it, okay? And how do we bring ourselves into tune with that specific thought? By raising ourselves in our own thought first. Remember, you must become the thing before you can have the thing, okay? You must attract that thing to you by first moving into the vibrational frequency which matches with that specific vibration, or energy, if you will. It has been able to come, okay, we just read this one. Okay, we know that the universal thought has for its goal the creation of form, and we know that the individual thought is likewise forever attempting to express itself in form, and we know that the word is a thought form, and a sentence is a combination of thought forms. Therefore, if we wish our ideal to be beautiful or strong, we must see that the words out of which this temple will eventually be created are exact. That they are put together carefully, because accuracy in building words and sentences is the highest form of architecture and civilization, and is a passport to success. Basically saying, learn how to represent yourself the best possible way you can. And words, the way you speak, the way you talk, the way you carry yourself is a big indication of who you are. That is, wow, the science of being great. He talks about great men, okay? Everybody's great, okay? Everybody's great. Everyone has the potential to be great. Everybody has the ability to go wherever it is they want to go and create the life that they please, okay? We all have that ability, okay? It's not the talent of being able to do it which makes us great. It is actually putting it into practice. It is actually taking action. Remember, actions are the third level of creation. Actions speak louder than words. Words speak louder than thoughts, okay? It is action. We have to take actions. And in order to be great, every action we take, we have to take it in the greatest possible way, okay? We have to see it in the greatest possible form. We have to see the greatest possible outcome. We have to see the greatest possible way of doing that outcome in order to express ourselves as a great personality, okay? Because all of us are great within. We all know that. It is what we are doing with this greatness which makes us great in the external world. Wow. Because accuracy in building words and sentences is the highest form of architecture and civilization, and is a passport to success. Because if Charles F. Haanel was not great in his architecture of words, this book would not be here. Words are thoughts and are therefore an invisible and invincible power, which will finally objectify themselves in the form they are given. Words may become mental places that will live forever, or they may become shacks which the first breeze will carry away. They may delight the eye as well as the ear. They may contain all knowledge. In them we find the history of the past as well as the hope of the future. They are living messengers from which every human and superhuman activity is born. The beauty of the word consists in the beauty of the thought. Remember, the nature of your thought depends on the nature of your word, depending on which in turn will create the nature of the action, which in turn will create the nature of your character. Remember, character equals destiny. The beauty of the word consists in the beauty of the thought. The power of the word consists in the power of the thought. And the power of the thought consists in its vitality. And how do we vitalize the thought? With our emotion. How shall we identify a vital thought? What are the distinguishing characteristics? It must have principle. How shall we identify the principle? There is a principle of mathematics, but none of error. There is a principle of health, but none of disease. There is a principle of truth, but none of dishonesty. There is a principle of light, but none of darkness. And there is a principle of abundance, but none of poverty. So basically saying all the laws of the universe are built and created for our own, to keep us forever advancing. That the nature of life is health, the nature of life is truth, the nature of life is honesty, the nature of life is light, the nature of life is abundant, the nature of God is all of these things, and the absence of God brings about disease. The absence of God brings about dishonesty. The absence of God brings about darkness. The absence of God, the absence of the universal intelligence, the unity with the Father mind from which we all have came from, the absence of our unity with this source, okay, is what brings about poverty. These are self-evident facts, but the all-important truth that a thought-containing principle is vital and therefore contains life and consequently takes root, and eventually but surely and certainly displaces the negative thoughts, which by their very nature can contain no vitality, is one which seems to have been overlooked. And like I said, you guys, the Science of Being series, Wallace D. Wattles puts all of this in the most simplest and natural form possible, okay, especially for the principle of health. He talks about the principle of health within man. And we go over, okay, we're just going to give you this little bit of it so you guys could actually get some food for thought from what Wallace D. Wattles has for us. Okay, in the book of The Science of Getting Rich, okay, he talks about the original substance, which is the exact same thing that Charles talks about, and how he says it is the universal mind, okay, or the intelligence. Okay, Wallace D. Wattles talks about the same thing, how we all came from this higher power, okay, and that we all have the ability to cooperate and put ourselves into conscious cooperation with this higher power, and once we do that, we essentially obtain the power of this higher power to create the life of our own dreams. Because remember, you are a creator, and your environment is the result of your thoughts, your words, and also your actions. Okay, but the Science of Being Well, okay, that's what it's called. The Science of Being Well, and he talks about the principle of health. And the principle of health that he states within man is simply when you're the difference between hunger and appetite. Okay, when you're hungry, that's when your subconscious mind, your digestive system is sending a message to the brain saying, hey, it's time to eat, so we could build new cell material in order to keep our own organism alive. And what is an organism? An organism is its own self-sustaining life organism, which is exactly what we are. Remember, we are trillions and trillions of these 26 trillion atoms. Okay, and those atoms are made of electrons, which in turn manifest into molecules, and those molecules in turn manifest as the cells. Okay, and all these cells, a cell is the most simplest life unit of man. Okay, we're made of millions of these cells. So our mind, our body, all of this has its origination within the cell, which has its origination in the most basic components of what this universal energy is made of. Okay, and then that was for hunger. Okay, hunger is when your subconscious mind is telling you it's time to eat. Okay, and then appetite. Appetite is when you just eat to eat when you're not hungry. Okay, when your body's not asking you for food, but you go for the apple anyway. That's appetite. Okay, when you're not asking for it, but you eat it anyway. Okay, he talks about eating. Okay, when you eat, you have to chew all your food to the most liquid state. Okay, do not swallow it as huge chunks, because that's harder on your digestive system when it's in the most liquid state. Not only is it easier for you to digest, but it's also easier for all the nutrients within the food to travel or to get picked up through the bloodstream. And remember, it is through the bloodstream which all the nutrients of the body travels through each and every cell of your body, which helps you, stay alive. Okay, those are basically the fundamental principles of the science of being well. Okay, the principle of health within man. Okay, that is only a part of it. Like I said, we already have the full book on our YouTube channel. I encourage you to check that out with us. Okay, but this is a fact that will enable you to destroy every manner of discord, lack, and limitation. There can be no question but that he who, quote, is wise enough to understand, end quote, and here's another quote, with all thy getting, get understanding, end quote. The appearance of a given amount of energy anywhere means the disappearance of the same amount somewhere else. Remember, letting go of the things you no longer need and putting it into the things that are essential for your proper growth. Okay. Here's also something else I want to share with you, especially with that. This is a quote by Socrates. Do not waste time fighting bad habits, okay? Instead, take that time to create new ones, okay? So that goes with here, okay? Instead of using all that energy into the things that no longer serve us to help us for our growth, let's start moving our energies into the things that do help us to grow, okay? Because all that energy needs to go somewhere, and depending on where you're putting it will depends on the things you give life to inside your own life. Okay, remember, you are a constant source of energy. You are a creator. You are the one that gives life to the material world. Okay. To me, this book means something because I know what's in it. Okay. To most people, it won't mean anything because they don't. Not only do they not know what's in it, but they don't even read at all. Okay. The interest that I have in this book is the life is a form of life that I have within myself. Okay, remember, it is from you which everything material takes on its own life forms. Okay, it is from you how you see these things. Okay, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. This cup means more to me than to anyone else. And it just slipped out of my hand and I dropped all my change, but that's okay because I don't know how all that's going to work out to my ultimate advantage, because if that didn't happen, because now I'm probably going to end up meeting somebody really cool, and we have a lot in common, and if that didn't happen, I might never have met that person. Okay, so that is one example of try not to get too upset when things happen, because everything truly does happen for a reason, and I firmly believe that all things always continuously are working together for all of our good. Remember, we are all a part of this source, and we are all moving together with this source. It is through us that God is able to learn about Himself. Okay, it is through us which He created us so He can learn more about Himself through us. Okay, let's continue. There can be no question but that he who, quote, is wise enough to understand, end quote, will readily recognize that the creative power of thought places an invincible weapon in his hands and makes him a master of destiny. And let me come back over here and read this from part 14. Thought is the only real reality. Conditions are but the outward manifestations. As the thought changes, all outward or material conditions must change in order to be in harmony with their creator, which is thought. Thinking makes the man. In the physical world, there is a law of compensation, which is that, quote, the appearance of a given amount of energy anywhere means the disappearance of the same amount somewhere else, end quote. And so we find that we can only get what we give. If we pledge ourselves to a certain action, we must be prepared to assume the responsibility for the development of that action. The subconscious cannot reason. It takes us at our word. We have asked for something. We are now to receive it. We have made our bed. and we are now to lie in it. The die has been cast, the threads will carry out the pattern we have made. And how is it going to do that? Remember how we were talking earlier about the process of imaging, and how your subconscious mind, all of your cells within the body, will shoot out energies into this infinite ocean of consciousness, asking for the things it needs in order to build the image which it has in mind. For this reason, insight must be exercised so that the thought which we have entertained contains no mental, moral, or physical germ which we do not wish objectified in our lives. Insight is the faculty of the mind whereby we are enabled to examine facts and conditions at a long range, a kind of human telescope. It enables us to understand the difficulties as well as the possibilities in any undertaking. Insight enables us to be prepared for the obstacles which we shall meet. We can therefore overcome them before they have an opportunity of causing difficulty. Insight enables us to plan to advantage and turn our thought and attention in the right direction, instead of into channels which can yield no possible return. Insight is therefore absolutely essential for the development of any great achievement, but with it we may enter, explore, and possess any mental field. Insight is a product of the world within and is developed in the silence by concentration. Now remember, what is the power of concentration? The power of concentration is the power of you using the power of your will to hold a certain thought form steadily to a purpose. Remember, it has to be consistent. It has to be incessant. It has to be incessant. It has to be consistent. It has to be subconscious. It must be habitual. Insight is the product of the world within and is developed in the silence by concentration. Okay, concentration is the consistent the consistency of a thought form held in mind, because remember, the more you think a thought, the more you build those grooves into your own mechanism of attachment, your brain. And as you build those grooves into your brain, it starts to become easier and easier to think those thoughts. Okay, and soon it'll become autosuggestion. Pretty soon it'll become a subconscious. Pretty soon it'll become a mental habit, and it'll be no longer any conscious effort in order to think those specific thoughts. For your exercise this week, concentrate on insight. Take your accustomed position and focus the thought on the fact that to have a knowledge of the creative power of thought does not mean to possess the art of thinking. Let the thought dwell on the fact that knowledge does not apply itself, that our actions are not governed by knowledge, but by custom, precedent, and habit, that the only way we can get ourselves to apply knowledge is by determined, conscious effort. Call to mind the fact that knowledge unused passed from the mind, that the value of the information is in the application of the principle. It's in the application. Continue this line of thought until you gain sufficient insight to formulate a definite program for applying this principle to your own particular problem. And now let's end this with a lovely quote by Horatio Bonar. And it says, "Think truly, and thy thoughts shall the world's famine feed. Speak truly, and each word of thine shall be a fruitful seed. Live truly, and thy life shall be a great and noble creed." End quote. Now that one is really a really nice way to end this part. Now let's go over study questions and answers. So, question 1. What determines the degree of harmony which we attain? And that is our ability to appropriate what we require from our growth from each experience. Remember, our ability to appropriate, pretty much put into practice what we have required for our growth. Now question 2. What do difficulties and obstacles indicate? That they are necessary for our wisdom and spiritual growth. That they may be something that, hey, maybe it's time to let go of this because it's no longer serving me or helping me to move forward. Or, hey, maybe I should take more of a look into this because it has something that I am very interested in learning more about that's going to help me to grow. Okay. Now question 3. How may these difficulties be avoided? By conscious understanding of and cooperation with natural laws. Remember, with all thy getting, get understanding. Let's make ourselves in harmony with natural law. How is it necessary? Okay, I almost skipped one. Okay, question 4. What is the principle by which thought manifests itself in form? The law of attraction. Number 5. How is the necessary material secured by which the growth, development, and maturity of the idea take form? The law of love, which is the creative principle of the universe, imparts vitality to the thought, and the law of attraction brings the necessary substance by the law of growth. Number 6. How are desirable conditions secured? By entertaining desirable thoughts only. 7. How are undesirable conditions brought about? By thinking, discussing, and visualizing conditions of lack, limitation, disease, inharmony, and discord of every kind. This mental photography, remember, mind, we live in an ocean of mind stuff, and it is through your own mind which you create your own reality. It has to be through the mind, the same substance from which this universe is made of. It has to. This mental photography of erroneous conceptions is taken up by the subconscious, and the law of attraction will inevitably crystallize it into objective form. You take on the character. That we reap what we sow is scientifically exact. Number 8. How can we overcome every kind of fear, lack, limitation, poverty, and discord? By substituting principle for error, by learning about natural law. 9. How may we recognize principle? By conscious realization of the fact that truth invariably destroys error. We do not have to laboriously shovel the darkness out. All that is necessary is to turn the light on. Remember, light. Darkness is simply the absence of light. Okay. Light is our nature. Christ is your nature. And what is Christ? Christ is the inner light, the spirit within. And what is spirit? Spirit is you in your real nature, your true form. We do not have to laboriously shovel the darkness out. All that is necessary is to turn the light on. The same principle applies to every form of negative thought. And then finally, 10. What is the value of insight? It enables us to understand the value of making application of the knowledge which we gain. Many seem to think that knowledge will automatically imply itself, which is by no means true. You must make the application. And then here is one final quote. There is no person which it says it's by, but to every man there openeth a way, and the high soul climbs the high way, and the low soul gropes the low, and in between on the misty flats the rest drift to and fro. But to every man there openeth a high way and a low, and every man decideth the way his soul shall go. End quote. Now that was really cool. All that is necessary is to turn the light on. My room's a little messy right now, you guys, so please be a little bit not so judgmental towards me, but there's a quote I want to finish this that I had wrote a while ago, and that it says, "We are the lights of the world, you and me, and together we can make a difference." And remember what he says about affirmations, okay? You are affirming who you are. Okay, so daily affirmation of the day: I am the light of the world. Okay? Repeat this to yourself continuously. And let your light shine, because that is who you are. And with that being said, that is the end of chapter 15 of the Master Key System. And remember, every day we read that chapter for the full week, and next Sunday we're going to go over chapter 16. So that being said, I'll see you on the other side of the galaxy. Thank you for watching, and take care.